Okay, so this panel is about what I call Academic Alley. I know Mitch's name for it is what? The mile? The medical mile. We heard Sue Rosenthal call it something different this morning, so everybody's got an acronym. But this is the area in the city where all of the academic medical centers, or many of them, are very densely concentrated on the Upper East Side. And so we're just going to have an overview of a few of the interesting things that are happening there, and some are moving to other parts of the city already. So why don't you just introduce yourselves and the institution that you're with, and then we can dive in.
Sure. I'm Jahan Ali. I lead the BioVenture Entrepreneurship Lab at Weill Cornell Medicine.
I'm George Candler. I run the Planning and Construction Office at Rockefeller University.
I'm Jim Braddock with Mitchell Jurgala Architects. We're working with George right now on the Sprunk Translational Center at Rockefeller.
Thank you. My name's Stephen Chambers. I'm Managing Director at IndieBio in New York and also a partner at SOSV.
So they're very different organizations, and I think you can see the breadth of activity that goes on in this particular subcluster. So Jahan, why don't you get us started and tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. So maybe if I can get my slides. I did put a few slides together.
Sure, right there.
Okay, so the BioVenture E-Lab is basically the entrepreneurship hub in Upper East Side of New York City. We we are part of Weill Cornell Medicine, but a lot of our programs are really open to the community. And our mission is, the reason they're open to the community is because our mission is really to create a robust entrepreneurial ecosystem at Weill Cornell. Next. So basically what we're trying to do is we start at the light bulb moment, and our goal is to create investable companies. So that's how we carry out our mission. And we're working super early. We might be working with a faculty member, with a patent application. We might be working with 2 student teams, with the beginning of an idea. So what we do is we have nonstop programming and resources and expertise that we provide. Because we know there's a lot of accelerator programs that may be 3 months long, 4 months long, but after that the team feels like they start to fall apart. So we may have a team, they start with a customer discovery program, which means they try to figure out, is the problem that they are trying to solve really a problem for the customer? If it is, then they go into creating a business plan. So we have a 12-week program where we match them with industry mentors as well to do that. Once you do that, then we have a half-day conference called Invest Connect, where we match you with VCs. Last conference in February, we mediated 76 meetings in an afternoon. So now you're talking about a scale to do that. So we've really tried to figure out the unmet needs and the little friction points that are that companies have this early. Next slide. I'm not going to go over these, but these are just some of the programs we do that I've divided into resources, expertise, and programming. And the last slide. So this is just to show that our EIRs, we also have 3 to 4 EIRs at any one time. And our goal is for our entrepreneur in residence to really become the CEOs or at least management talent at the company and our advisors. So there are some successes in that and some of the companies that are part of our ecosystem. And I'll just end with, next slide, please.
And Jahan, what is an EIR?
Entrepreneur in residence. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have an entrepreneur in residence in therapeutic space, 1 in the device space, 2 in therapeutic space, device, digital, as well as 1 person who is a finance expert, who gets really involved with the cap table, equity division, because these are all questions, that people have no idea how to do. So that's us in a nutshell. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Great. So the institutions that share the corner of 68th Street and York Avenue, which are Rockefeller, MSK, and Weill Cornell Medicine, are 3 leading biomedical research institutions. And they have established collaborations to advance the discoveries that come out of our laboratories towards commercialization and the translation of those discoveries towards commercialization and better health outcomes. In 2013, the three institutions founded a new institution, the Tri-Institutional Therapeutics Discovery Initiative. We call it TDI. It's a non-profit organization that has a partnership with Takeda Pharmaceuticals. And the mission of TDI is to take promising discoveries in any of the institutions and try to develop them towards proof of concept models by developing either small molecules or antibody compounds or drugs. TDI is able to provide industrial quality support to the academic projects that helps move these towards the feasibility phase. The main issue at TDI, though, is that it's split among several campuses. It has space at MSK, it has space at Weill Cornell. It really needs to be together. In addition to that, what's really lacking in our neighborhood is a biotech incubator. Those are being created near academic institutions in other parts of the city, but it's sorely lacking on the Upper East Side. So what we are doing right now is trying to resolve that. A biotech incubator really wants to be as close as possible to the investigators who created the concept. There really needs to be a tied connection to that. So the closer to campus, the better. So what we're doing is we have an existing building on campus we're fortunate enough to have space in. We're going to develop 3 floors of the Bronx laboratory. 2 floors will consolidate the TDI laboratories into a single location. And the 3rd floor will be a biotech incubator that will service the 3 institutions. So with that brief introduction, I'll turn it over to Jim, and then I'll be happy to chime in if helpful.
So I have some slides, so you could put up the first one here. So this is showing you the 3 floors that George mentioned in the Bronx building. The TDI is on the 6th floor and half of the 5th floor. The other half of the 5th floor is for future expansion. Could be TDI, could be something else. And then the 4th floor is an incubator. Bronx is a kind of 60s vintage building with, it's got not bad bones, double loaded corridor stairs at either end. It's a little chilly, but it seems that it has the mechanical infrastructure to more or less support the program, which is really good. The TDI program is really fascinating. They have a biology lab, as George mentioned, an antibody lab, kind of an engineering lab, and a chemistry lab. So it's quite a lot going on, also offices and meeting spaces and so on. And the incubator floor has kind of open shared labs as well as individual, what we're calling private labs, and mostly open plan workspace. Again, meeting space and some support facilities like tissue culture and equipment rooms and so on. So the challenge architecturally for this, well, first of all, is really flexibility. It is anticipated that, especially on the incubator floor, but even on the TDI floor, things will change. And so we have to deal with that architecturally. What does that mean? And then the other thing is just sort of, as I said, it's a bit cold, the building, so kind of warming it up and making it feel like a place that's appropriate for this really interesting program. Next. So this is just an elevator lobby. We're introducing natural materials, wood and color and good lighting. Next. And the corridors, again, color and natural materials and signage. Next. And then this is a rendering of the laboratory. And here we're using a movable bench system with all the services delivered from above, because we think that's kind of the best way to really deal with possible changes over time. That's about it.
Terrific. That looks like a fascinating project. And I know that, talking to some of the senior leaders at Rockefeller, they've long wanted a place for entrepreneurs, where their students could actually work in companies that were getting started. That's a real recruitment mechanism for you, right? In order to keep your talent pool strong. So glad to see this happening on the Rockefeller campus now. Terrific. terrific project.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
Yeah. So, Stephen, you've been at Rockefeller for about a year.
Yes, yes. So we've been very graciously, Rockefeller allowed us to use one of the floors in the Weiss Science Tower, and IndieBio in New York has been going there for, like, we started right at the beginning of the pandemic, so our timing was very good, but we have run 3 programs. If you haven't heard of IndieBio before, it's kind of a very kind of successful, famous incubator that started in San Francisco maybe about 6 years ago. And the general kind of thesis that we have, like our investment thesis, like there's a venture fund behind us, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but the general thesis that we have, the investment thesis, is that we invest in human and planetary health. So we look at all life science companies across a very wide spectrum. So that's everything from therapeutics, small molecules, protein therapeutics, cellular therapeutics, all the way into med tech, all the way into alternative foods, ag tech, and like the deal flow we see is kind of like enormous that we see. And we see deal flow come from around the globe. And the idea is that these companies come to us and we work with them very closely for 6 months. Like we do take an equity position in them. As I said, we are a VC fund. But what we look to do is improve the investability of those companies. There's a lot of business hygiene that goes on. There's a lot of working on the business model that they have. But one of the kind of differences that we have in our program is that we have a lab, okay, that these companies can come to. So they come out of the university system and they go into our labs and start working on technical inflection points to try and de-risk the technology as much as possible. And the whole idea is to make them more investable. So they go through our program, and at the other end, we have a graduating demo day where we get them in front of investors. And that's where it really kicks in. So the idea is to take companies, like we claim to basically, teach scientists to become entrepreneurs by coming to our programs. And it's been very successful. As I said, it's been very successful in San Francisco. We've had 3 cohorts graduate. They've raised, as of today, the first 2 cohorts have raised over 30 million coming out of the program. So the idea is that when New York, so our sponsors are New York State. They basically came to us, they saw how successful IndieBio had been in San Francisco, and they decided this is one of the missing pieces that New York needs. New York has always been terrible for the first check. So getting companies going, like if you're coming from a hallowed institution, you're head of department, you have the connectivity to get that first check. Most folks don't, okay? It's very difficult to get that first check. When I was starting my own companies, it was very difficult, and nothing's changed really, okay? But I wouldn't come to New York to raise money. I'd go to San Francisco, I'd do it in Cambridge. I would do it within certain geographies. New York typically was later stage, okay? More Series B, Series C, definitely you had to have tight visibility on revenues. So there was kind of a reluctance to sort of go in early stage, and that's what IndieBio provides. It provides that resources, both financial resources and kind of the technical resources that you need, both in the mentorship and in the executive skills, but also on the technical side of things.
Yeah, so you had some big news recently. In addition to your demo day and your graduating companies and all the success in raising capital, you found a new home.
Yes, we have. So we are moving from Rockefeller. Although we really enjoyed kind of working on that lovely campus there, we are moving to Midtown. So we've taken up a residence in 7 Penn Plaza. So we've taken over the 9th floor. Demolition has started. Building plans should be agreed this week. So the hope is that we're going to be moving in sometime in the middle of the next year.
That's terrific. And some of you may not know, but SOSV has a number of areas that they invest in, and one of them is called the Hacks Hubs. And this is for startups in environmental technologies and industrial technologies and you've just announced a new headquarters for that.
Yes, okay, so IndieBio is part of a VC fund called SOSV. Started out as a family fund, New Yorker, Sean O'Sullivan started it, but it's grown kind of considerably from then, and we have a number of LPs. We're on our, I think it's our 5th fund we're coming up to now. Phenomenally successful. And we work in a number of verticals, and IndieBio is just the life science ones, like HAX is the hardware one. We did have it in China. We're keeping the China one, but we're also going to have a HAX in New Jersey as well, Newark, New Jersey. And the great thing is that it's 20 minutes, pen to pen. Like, it's kind of perfect. And we're already seeing deal flow come out from being able to offer both a life science component and the hardware component as well. So we're expecting great things from that. And that's kind of like why we came here. So as I said, like, we are part of this life science initiative that the governor announced, I think it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, where New York was going to nucleate and grow its life science community, the ecosystem around it. And although it's New Jersey, this is part of it, nucleating activity around New York.
Yeah, it's so interesting because many of the panels that spoke today talked about this proximity and the ease of transportation. You heard Bill Harvey talk about the ease of getting to Court Square, on public transportation, and then connecting Newark with Penn Plaza, and the Cove by water taxi takes 8 minutes, and so it's really the ability to travel in the mass transit that's here makes everything so much easier, and in effect brings the region much closer together in a way that we couldn't accomplish otherwise. So
yes, and even the connectivity with Boston. So I'm a
right.
kind of I still commute a bit, but so I'm a kind of an exile from Cambridge. But like the connectivity you have with the Acela, like it's 4 hours. You can do that in a day.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's really good.
Well, thanks everybody for sharing what you're doing. Good luck with everything, and we'll look forward to watching your progress.
Great.
Let us know when the opening is.
Definitely.